Okay, we start differently today. We begin with a problem. I'll dictate a problem, you take it down and think about it. Incidentally, this is related to that idea that even pure gas will offer certain amount of resistance, and also to reinforce that point which I made, which was to say that when it is a pure gas, then in practical circumstances you could safely ignore that resistance on the consideration of time scale. Okay, now I want all of you to take down the problem quickly. In a gas liquid contactor, a pure gas is absorbed in a gas liquid contactor. A pure gas is absorbed in a solvent, and the penetration theory provides a reasonable model by which to describe the transfer mechanism. I'll read the whole sentence again. In a gas liquid contactor, a pure gas is absorbed in a solvent, and the penetration theory provides a reasonable model by which to describe the transfer mechanism. As fresh solvent is exposed to the gas, the transfer rate is initially limited by the rate at which the gas molecules can reach the surface. I'll read this sentence again. As fresh solvent is exposed to the gas, the transfer rate is initially limited by the rate at which the gas molecules can reach the surface. If at 293 Kelvin and a pressure of 1 bar, the maximum possible rate of transfer of gas is 50 meter cube per meter square per second. 50 meter cube per meter square per second. Express this as an equivalent resistance. When the gas solubility is 0.04 kmol per meter cube. 0.04 kmol per meter cube. If the diffusivity in the liquid phase is 1.8 into 10 to the power minus 9, 1.8 into 10 to the power minus 9 meter square per second, at what time after the initial exposure will the resistance attributable to excess of gas, ACCESS, excess of gas, be equal to 10% of the total resistance, 10% of the total resistance to transfer. I will repeat the whole problem once again in case anything is missed out, because every word is important. In a gas liquid contactor, a pure gas is absorbed in a solvent, and the penetration theory provides a reasonable model by which to describe the transfer mechanism. As fresh solvent is exposed to the gas, the transfer rate is initially limited by the rate at which the gas molecules can reach the surface. If at 293 Kelvin and a pressure of 1 bar, the maximum possible rate of transfer of gas is 50 meter cube per meter square per second. Express this as an equivalent resistance when the gas solubility is 0.04 kmol per meter cube. If the diffusivity in the liquid phase is 1.8 into 10 to the power minus 9 meter square per second, at what time after the initial exposure will the resistance attributable to excess of gas be equal to about 10% of the total resistance to transfer. I have read it twice. Now I expect you to read it once carefully, and then we proceed, returning back to this problem later. Read it carefully and think over. Okay, have you read it? The only thing I want you to note that if you understand that you have not understood anything, it's okay. We'll return to this in the last 20 minutes. Okay? Fine. So we return to the real problem now. the absorption from dilute vapor was only in a limiting sense of relevance to practice, but pedagogically it served a very important platform to introduce you to the reality of gas absorption problems. Okay. So, we now want to carefully extend that analysis to a concentrated vapor, or where the concentration of the solute in the gas phase or vapor in the gas phase is so high that you can no longer neglect changes in the gas and liquid molar fluxes. As the gas moves upward, loses solute, there will be drop in the gas molar flux, and there will be corresponding gain in the liquid molar flux. We neglected those under the assumption of dilute vapor. We had treated capital G and capital L as constants. No longer. Okay. Other considerations remain same. That is, the kind of packings we choose, the magnitudes of fluxes chosen on the basis of the area, so that we keep a safe distance away from the flooding condition disaster. Those considerations remain same. We still have the variety of mole balances, and before we write them, in this case we will spend a little more time looking at what we have done. It helps to recap what we have done in case of dilute vapor, so that you understand the landmarks overall. The details will be modified. In determination of height, we had 3 key equations. The first 2 key equations were based on mass balance, and the third key equation came from thermodynamics. In case of dilute vapor absorption and for soluble, sparingly soluble solute or vapor, we simply had presumed Henry's law to be describing the equilibrium. The 2 mass balances we had were on the solute in total, that is taking the liquid and gas together. That gave us the first equation. Second equation was making a partial mass balance on the solute only in the gas phase in terms of what is lost to the liquid. Okay. Now, the first equation we got was this: dy by dx equal to L by G, where y and x are mole fractions in gas and liquid, and L and G are molar fluxes of liquid and gas. We could simply have written this considering that G dy is equal to L dx, allowing the differential to take care of the sign. Okay. We integrated this, and I have expressed the same equation now in terms of y. So, that is the only difference. Y is now y0 plus L by G x minus x0. X0 is the outgoing solute concentration in the liquid, and that is highest in the column. So, note that x minus x0 is at best 0. Overall throughout the column this is negative, so y is less than y0 as is required. You are losing the solute or vapor from the gas phase into the liquid. Okay. I repeat, this has come from the mass balance on solute in a tower subsection of height delta z, and since it was an expression coming from material balance and it connects the gas phase mole fraction to the liquid phase mole fraction anywhere in the column, this is named as operating line. Operating line is the statement of material balance. Please note in passing here that here we do not have a specific reference to a particular z. If you went to the steps before this where we got it, we had z in the picture. We had z as the independent variable and x and y as dependent variables. That is the primitive information from the mass balance. Since we could eliminate this independent variable, we are able to establish a relationship between 2 dependent variables. So, in a sense, if I were to make a plot of y versus x, it will be the so called phase portrait. where we have gotten rid of the independent variable. Okay. Now think of that. You plot on y-axis the mole fraction in the gas phase, and on x-axis the mole fraction of the solute in the liquid phase. An integrated form of that equation or this one is going to be a line under the assumption that L and G are constant. It will be a straight line, y versus x, and that's an operating line. So by operating line, we symbolize the statement of material balance which connects the liquid phase composition to the gas phase composition, or the other way around. Let that be clear. Okay. Having said that, we will have to re-scrutinize the material balance if we were to take ourselves to address the concentrated vapor problem. That is the first point I want you to note in passing. The third key equation in our original analysis was this y star equal to Hx, the statement of equilibrium from thermodynamics. For any existing liquid phase composition represented by mole fraction x, the equilibrium mole fraction in the gas will be y star. True only for dilute vapor case and for sparingly soluble vapor or solute. I repeat that. Okay. Our third key equation came from the mole balance or mass balance on the solute in the gas phase alone. This was the input minus output with the gas stream into that section of area capital A and height delta z, and across the interface we had transfer of mass at this overall gas phase mass transfer coefficient capital K subscript G. Let this stand corrected. This is capital K subscript G. It is overall mass transfer coefficient. Small a is specific area, A delta Z is the volume of that section. So that is the total area, and C1 minus C1 star is the difference in the concentration of solute in the bulk gas minus the concentration C1 star, which would be in the gas phase if it were to be at equilibrium with the liquid phase with mole fraction x of solute. Okay. So when we integrated this, we obtained that. That's our third key equation. So that's a recap of what we done. L is G by kGAC. I absorbed that sign here. So limits are now from YL to Y0 dy by y minus y star. And I argued that in order to solve this, we need y star in terms of y. We have y star in terms of x. We have x in terms of y. So plugging in x from here into here, and then over here we should be able to integrate. We did that for dilute vapor case. We found that the height of tower worked out to be this expression. So that's a summary of determination of height of the tower in the case of dilute vapor case. Okay. Now we come to a little interactive part. I want you to think about this. This is straight from the material or an energy balances, or in chemistry you will call it stoichiometry in your pre-JEE days. Question is, if we now look at the first material balance in the section of column of height delta z between z and z plus delta z, and we now say that the gas phase is now concentrated, substantial amounts of solute are present in the gas and they get removed. So gas molar flux will be possibly varying along the height, and correspondingly the liquid molar flux L will also vary along the height. Now if we have to consider that, how will the first material balance change? That is something I would want you to think almost passively, but I will come to the so called phase portrait space for dilute vapor, because that's the last piece of information you need now in solving the real concentrated vapor problem. If I were to conceptually plot y versus x, and I argued that the operating line, which is the statement of material balance connecting y with x, I will get a straight line. The incoming gas mole fraction is y0, that is at the bottom of the tower, that decreases to YL at the top of the tower of height L, corresponding mole fractions of liquid are x0 in the outlet at the bottom, xl is the incoming mole fraction of solute with the liquid. That is your operating line. And if I were to plot on the same phase portrait Henry's law, I would plot y star versus x, and then I get this equilibrium line, y star equal to hx. Okay. Now let us go back a step, and the reason I am not showing here the expression, final evaluated expression for L, for a demonstration that we need to think of this right hand side somewhat differently. Okay. Let us say for some reason we did not have the information like Henry's law to be able to evaluate this integral in a straightforward closed form. We would still be able to solve the problem. We might have required numerical or graphical integration. Okay. What would we have done? We would have looked at different y values on the operating line. We would have drawn perpendiculars to x axis from those y, seen where those lines would intersect equilibrium line, and from there we would get corresponding y star values. Okay. We would have got therefore these y minus y star values, which corresponding to every location is a measure of the driving force. How much is the difference between operating condition and equilibrium condition which express the finality? There is no further transfer possible beyond equilibrium. Pardon? I am just asking you to presume that suppose we had the information about y star not like Henry's law. We would get some kind of line. It might not be a straight line even. The argument remains same. Okay. So basically the point is that we would have got these y minus y star values. I will repeat what I said. I said that we may not have information about equilibrium in the straightforward fashion as Henry's law, and therefore this integration might not have been possible analytically. We might not have been able to write it this way, okay, for some reason. I did not say we won't have equilibrium information. We will have equilibrium information. It will not be in the convenient form of Henry's law. Let us put it this way, in the extreme case that I have given you y star versus x as tabulated values, experimentally measured tabulated values. For certain x values I know y star, or somebody has given a graph, I have that graph. So the equilibrium information is there. It is not in the convenient form of Henry's law, so that I can integrate straight away like this, and I am considering that situation. How do I handle that? I would be able to have the operating line, and I would have an equilibrium curve. It might not have been even a straight line. I would just have pairs of numerical values of y star versus x, and I would have that equilibrium relationship. So I would take different points here on the operating line, draw what parallel to y axis or perpendicular to x, see where it cuts the equilibrium curve, and I would have read off corresponding to those y values what are the y star values. Okay. So at the end of it, for several y values I would have corresponding y star values. So I have y minus y star values. I could have taken reciprocal of those and made another plot, that is 1 by y minus y star versus y, and then between yl and y0 I would have found out the area under the curve, and that would be this integral. I have no formula now or a analytical relation for the integral, but I have a value. Okay. This would have been a graphical way of getting that value of the integral, or as you might be more conversant today with numerical integration, you could have an algorithm. You could just feed the values of y versus x and y star versus x, and then you get this integral, and it could be done by as simple method as Simpson's rule. Or if you wanted more accurate values, you could have used quadrature formulas. Basically, graphically or numerically, this integral could be obtained. Okay. Now it turns out this happens to be the actual situation, the concentrated vapor. And the concentrated vapor case, becomes a little more trickier than this. I am taking you through steps so that your understanding is clear. Are you with me here up to here? Everything clear? Any questions? Okay. If there are no questions, we go ahead. We revisit that point. We have to set up a mass balance on the total solute in the gas and liquid together in that height of tower delta Z between Z and Z plus delta Z. And we are dealing with concentrated vapor there. So, there are substantial changes in G and L. G would reduce from bottom to the top, L would increase from top to bottom. Okay. So, we go to the same principle. We say steady state is still a fair assumption. So, accumulation is 0. We calculate what is the input minus output with the gas and input minus output with the liquid, sum it up, there is no reaction, and so net input minus net output will be equal to 0. So, let us do that. We will get this differential equation minus dgy by dz plus dlx by dz. Gy enters this section at z with the gas moving up into it. Gy at z plus delta z leaves. So, Gy at z minus Gy at z plus delta z will be the input minus output with the gas stream into this section. And similarly, Lx will enter at z plus delta z and leave at z. So, we will have the second term plus Lx at z plus delta z minus Lx at z. I have deliberately removed the area because that would be common. Area is not going to vary, so that would be cancelled. Divide by delta z now this equation and you get this minus dgy by dz plus dlx by dz equal to 0. You want to take a minute and verify this or you agree? Gy at z minus gy at z plus delta z by delta z tends to 0, that is by definition minus d by dz of gy, and Lx at z plus delta z minus Lx at z divided by delta z will be d by dz of Lx. Input in liquid entering at z plus delta z and leaving at z. Input with gas entering at z, leaving at z plus delta z. Okay. We have intentionally, after repeated statement that this is a concentrated vapor case, G and L could vary, we kept it inside the differential operation. We have not taken it out like in dilute vapor case. Okay. Now, the question arises, how are we going to deal with a variable G and variable L? Maybe you get 30 seconds to think and tell me something at least qualitatively, if not quantitative. Yeah, but variation of G will have to be taken into account, right? And please remember, this part is analogous to this. This is for dilute vapor, this is for concentrated vapor. Integration of that gave you the operating line, integration of this will also give you operating line. We note here that the gas phase will be mixture of a solute and an insoluble component. I would not say it inert because inert would mean something about reactivity. Here we are talking of solubility. So, we have the soluble solute and insoluble gas, and then we have the vapor coming from the gas phase or solute coming from gas phase into the liquid, and we will say that liquid does not flash into gas phase. So, it is a non-volatile solvent. We will not want to remove the solute and put solvent into the gas phase, we might be polluting more, right. So, in terms of those insoluble gas and non-volatile liquid solvent, in the sense of stoichiometry, we could use those as fixed quantities. Their flow rates, their mass fluxes will not change, because they are not absorbed or vaporized. So, we have a chance if we say that Y is the mole fraction of the solute in the gas phase, then in a single mole of this solute plus insoluble gas, 1 minus Y is insoluble. So, for 1 minus Y insoluble, 1 is the total. If the insoluble gas molar flux is G0, the total molar flux should be this. That simple proportion, 1 minus Y to 1 and G0 to G, right. Similarly, If x is the solute, 1 minus x is the solvent, non-volatile. For 1 minus x non-volatile solvent, 1 is the total mole of solution. And if the solvent molar flux is L0, then the total molar flux of the solution will be L0 by 1 minus. Is that clear? For 1 minus y, 1 is the total. For 1 minus x, 1 is the total. G0 is the insoluble portion, this is the non-volatile portion. So, we circumvent the problem of the variable G and L in terms of the basis insoluble gas and non-volatile liquid, and now we have the required relations, we plug them back here. G and L are total gas molar flux and total liquid molar flux. Okay. One in total, 1 mole of gas mixture, 1 minus y is the insoluble portion. So, for 1 minus y insoluble, total is 1. For G0 insoluble, we have total G. Look at it this way also. Sometimes it helps. Solute is y, total is 1. So, 1 minus y is the insoluble gas. Insoluble gas is less compared to the total, because insoluble plus soluble is what is total. So, for 1 minus y insoluble, 1 is the total. If G0 is the insoluble, then G total must be larger, since 1 minus y is smaller than 1, this is a larger quantity than G0. I said G0 is the molar flux of insoluble gas, right? G into 1 minus is G0. See, total is G. No, G naught is not total, G naught is insoluble. See, okay, I think I again am asking the same question. You studied psychometry before 12th, I know, for JEE also, and you have probably studied the material and energy balance here, or you are studying now, could be one of those situations. You have a concept called basis. For solving any problem in the numerical calculation sense, you have to think of the basis. Okay. In a variable scenario, the constant quantities are the basis. So, if it is a solute insoluble gas mixture, then the insoluble gas is the constant part, that is our basis. And in case of the solution, we have the solute which can vaporize and the solvent which is desired not to vaporize. We will choose only non-volatile solvent or such volatile solvent which won't pollute. Okay. If, for example, if you use water as a solvent and water vapor is lost in the gas phase, no harm done. But if I have monoethanol amine while absorbing CO2 and I put monoethanol amine in the gas phase, in the exhaust, I am replacing CO2 by monoethanol amine vapor, that may be dangerous proposition, right. So, our solvent will be from practical considerations chosen to be non-volatile. So, that will be something which does not vary, that is a constant one. So, those are the key components we take as basis, non-variable. Okay? Now, I think you start working out, you will be as quick as I am here. Substitute G and L over here and integrate, maybe little slower, does not matter. All of you substitute for G and L in this material balance and integrate. We are seeking a relation between y and x once again, but now for concentrated vapor. That is the relation between y and x, or operating line for concentrated vapor. Now, check one special case. We expect the concentrated vapor case to be more general than the dilute vapor case, and it is given here that y0 must be large to be enough to call this as a concentrated vapor. If we take a special case that y0 becomes small, then we should get the special case of dilute vapor from here. Can you see that happening? If y0 tends to become small, then this tends to become close to 1. This will become, if y is small, y0 is small, then y must be even smaller, x also must be small. So, this becomes closer to x minus x0. We have L0 by G0 here. Here it becomes y0, and since y0 is small, all these will be small. So, that is same as the operating line for the dilute vapor, where L0 and G0 now could be stated to be L and G which were presumed not to vary for dilute vapor. Okay. Now, this kind of reduction of a more general solution to a special case is no guarantee that the more general solution is necessarily correct. If this were correct, then the special case which is deduced from here will be necessarily correct. That is the deductive kind of logic, where if we know that the dilute vapor solution is correct and the concentrated vapor solution reduces to it, it means that this may possibly be right. We can have a fair amount of confidence that this may be right, but there is no guarantee. On the other hand, if we are sure this is correct, then the special case must be correct. So, that is the certainty of the deductive logic. Other one is inductive. Now, as you can see, this is not going to be a linear relation between y and x. So, we might have Fourier's portrait now, where y versus x may not be linear and the operating line is also non-linear. But we could do the same exercise as earlier. We could drop perpendiculars from here at different y values, read off the y star values, and then possibly use that information for integration. We will start from here next time.